Hey Internet, it's me. And tonight's movie is Blank. Now, I'm beginning to think that when the genre for a film is listed as thriller, what that means is drama with one or two scenes of tension. Because, very similarly to a lot of the other movies I've seen this month, this isn't horror or horror-y, really. I guess, let me start at the beginning. A woman is a writer, and she's hit writer's block, which you later found out was because she stole all her stories from her mother, and she hasn't written any stories herself. But what she does to solve this writer's block, is go to a retreat. But because this is like a sci-fi, semi-futuristic type movie, this retreat is entirely AI run. There are no humans anywhere near the facility. You know, there is a physical robot that's like her servant slash helper slash maid that is in the facility, and then there's like an AI hologram projection thing that she talks to that appears to be like I guess the groundskeeper is the best term. And then there's a huge computer virus, and things go wonky, and there's a couple scenes where it feels like it could take a horror turn, like maybe the robot is evil, excuse me, or going to kill her, or something bad is going to happen. She ends up trapped in the house, but it never actually takes that turn. Instead, she flashes back to her own childhood and how she got to where she is now, and her being trapped in the house isn't a point of horror so much as a point of bleakness and hopelessness. And I don't know, it's just another movie where it's not horror or scary or terrifying. It's just depressing and bleak and sad. And the two aren't the same. I wish people would stop that. I wish people would stop equating horror with, like, just sadness and depression and hopelessness. Like, sometimes that is fun in a horror movie where the would-be victim has hope, and then throughout the story loses that hope and becomes just hopeless and resigned. That can be fun. It's fun watching that downward spiral, and it's fun in a very morbid, macabre way, seeing them finally break and just lose that hope and just become a husk. The ending of Saw comes to mind, where the doctor basically is just completely resigned to what's happened. You know, he has given up. He doesn't think there's a way to beat the system anymore, and he cuts his own leg off just to follow the rules put before him and to do what Jigsaw wanted. He's like, oh, I'll go get help. But even when he says that, he's trying to be cheerful and hopeful, but it doesn't come across that way. He seems so broken and empty because, you know, everything that had happened throughout the movie, you know, he feels like his family has died, and he feels like, you know, his whole life has just come apart and become unraveled. Like, he's just lost everything that made him a person. You know, he's completely hopeless and just broken. And that is a very fun unraveling to watch. But in movies like this, it's not that same thing. You're not watching the person break down because of, you know, the horrific elements or the monster or the impossible situation that they're in. You know, in this one, it's just a drama of a woman facing her own demons. And again, sometimes that can be okay too. There are movies where the villain is basically also the protagonist. Like, they're wrestling with themselves and what's in their head. And that's fine. You can do that well and make an interesting movie. That's just not what happened here. I mean, it was interesting. It was fine, I guess. But as a drama, it didn't need to be listed as a thriller, and it should never be considered alongside horror because it's just not. There's no scenes of, like, real horror, I guess is the only word for it. There's a couple moments where, like I said, where it's a little tense, but you very quickly realize that the movie's not going in that direction. And so the tension of those scenes starts to become lost because clearly that's not what they're going for. You know, by the end of it, where the robot lady is attacking her, you're not actually worried that she's gonna be injured or die or anything like that, because the whole movie, there have been multiple times where it could have taken that turn and it never did. It wouldn't make sense to do it in the last 10 minutes. Not to say there aren't movies that won't have just an out of nowhere ending or a major tonal shift in the last 10 to 15 minutes. This was never going to be one of those. You know, it was very clear that this movie was not trying to be that, and so you never thought that was going to be the ending. And so the ending you did get wasn't so much a surprise. Like either she was going to die in the house or eventually she was going to get out. How it happened doesn't change the fact that you knew it was going to happen. So yeah, this just, I don't know. This movie didn't offer a lot. Like I said, I guess it's perfectly fine as a drama. It's a somewhat interesting story, but framing it in this AI mechanism and trying to be somewhat horror adjacent, just, I don't know, it kind of obfuscates and buries the story, which is clearly the main focus, the dramatic story that they're trying to tell. So I think they did their own story and movie a disservice by trying to shoehorn it into a genre that it honestly has no business being associated with. Um, and yeah, I mean, everything else is fine. You know, visually it looks great. The actors all killed it. Wayne Brady was in this movie, which I did not expect. Was very surprised by and absolutely loved. I was really hoping when the movie started and you first saw him, before I knew the direction the movie was going, I was hoping that the robot would be, you know, a red herring villain, where you would think that was going to be the, you know, the real threat, the problem, but in the end it would actually be the groundskeeper, you know, Wayne Brady's character. I thought and hoped that was the direction it was going to go, because I think Wayne Brady as a villain just is a really awesome concept to me. I think that could have been a lot of fun. I think I've seen him perform live, and he is just a master of ad lib, and he can really just match the tone or the character of whatever situation he's in. So I think if they gave him the chance to play a villain and just really let him let loose, I think this could have been an amazing movie. I would have loved to see him in a role like that, or even just in this movie. I would have liked to see him more. His character got written out pretty quick, and they didn't give him a lot to do. But yeah, no, the acting was great. The visuals were great. I mean, all the components were there. It's just they didn't want to use them. They didn't want to make a horror movie. They wanted to make a drama. They just wanted a bigger audience, so they kind of made it horror adjacent and pitched it to those folks because horror fans will watch anything. And yeah, I don't know. It didn't work out. It's not what I wanted out of this movie. It could have been a lot better. It could have done a lot more. There's a lot of potential in the initial framing and setup that they just did not seize at all, and they just made a mediocre drama that has a weird sci-fi framing. And that's where I'm going to leave this one. I'll see you tomorrow.